Okay, let me close these rooms. Okay, where are we at? You're muted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once you call the case, I will announce that we have an agreement on the ex parte portion. I do want to offer my exhibits 1 and 2 that I have circulated to the attorneys. And also, I think I've got Keegan Ramirez and Amanda Jones in the waiting room if they could come in so they'll be aware that we have an agreement. We're here on
an ex parte hearing following emergency removal. For the record, we do not have a court reporter today. This is being recorded to the cloud. If anyone needs to have a copy of the recording, they can get with Haley in my office and she'll give you the link for it. All right, Ms. Gutierrez is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram is with us representing the children. Ms. Naranjo is with us representing the mother. Ms. Olguin, who is with us, and with her, the father, Mr. Pantoja, is not with us and he's not in the waiting room. This hearing was set for 2:10. It's now 2:26. We'll proceed in his absence. Ms. Gutierrez, I understand that there's been an agreement reached.
There is an agreement as to the ex parte hearing, but I believe Ms. Naranjo intends to ask about placement of the children. The agreement is for the ex parte hearing is being agreed to, so the department being named temporary managing conservator, parents being made temporary possessory conservators. I do ask the court for findings that the department made reasonable efforts, including that FBSS case, the prior FBSS case. Additionally, we want to draw the court's attention to the name discrepancy in the petition versus the. Additionally, we offer petitioners exhibit 1 and 2 as evidence.
All right, those are the 2 additional affidavits.
Yes, Your Honor, those are the affidavits.
All right. All right, any objections?
No objection.
And Your Honor, I'd like to, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish that part.
Mr. Ingram, any objections?
No, sir, no objection.
All right, petitions 1 and 2 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I also ask if Keegan or Amanda can let me know where the children are placed right now.
They are both currently placed in a foster home in Lubbock, Texas, both of them together.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ramirez.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I believe that Ms. Naranjo intends to ask the court about placement of the children with maternal grandparents. We are opposed to that placement, Your Honor, but I'll give her the floor and allow her the opportunity to inquire about that.
Okay.
Your Honor, we are asking that you consider placing the children with the maternal grandparents. They will not have Miss Olguin residing in their residence. She will be residing with her brother in Amarillo. They understand that she is to have no contact with the children. They won't even allow her on their property, that she's only to have contact as supervised by the department. Their understanding is that she basically took off with the kids while they weren't present and just did what she wanted to do. They're willing to do everything they can to protect the children. But if the court is not willing to consider placing them at this time, we would at least ask that an expedited home study be done on their residence.
All right. Let me look here. I want to find in the original affidavit, were these kids placed originally with the paternal grandparents or maternal?
Maternal.
All right. So I may have read this wrong. Let me just clarify. Somebody can clarify for me. In the affidavit, I read that maybe I meant to say maternal instead of paternal. Grandfather said that mother had gone back to her old life, stole his car, and took the kids. Is that correct? And
Yes, Your Honor. Keegan had seen the family, I believe, on February 19th, and when he talked to the grandparents on the 22nd, when he stopped by there, that was what he was informed by Miss Olguin's father, the maternal grandfather.
Okay. Okay.
The department's concern is that Keegan had made the grandparents aware that contact was to be supervised for the children and the mother, and there was no contact or reach out to the department to inform them that mom had disappeared with the kids. Unfortunately, Your Honor, we are opposed to that placement at this time.
Okay. All right. I'll get Mr. Ingram's take on that. I understand your concern that they waited 4 days and didn't notify you. but I assume that some type of at least preliminary background was done on them before the kids were, or they were allowed to be the supervising party. Is that correct?
I would have to ask Keegan or Kelsey to answer that. Keegan, are you able to answer that?
Yes, it was already approved in the investigation stage of this case before the OTP was granted.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right, then, with that exception, Ms. Naranjo, I'll listen to what Mr. Ingram has to say, and then I'll rule on the placement. But other than that, is this your client's agreement that the department be named temporary managed conservator, parents named possessory conservators?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Again, Mr. Pantoja is not here, so then if there's nothing further as far as testimony, I've read all the affidavits. Mr. Ingram, do you have a position on whether or not we should place the kids back with the maternal grandparents?
Yeah, I'm like you. I understand the concern, and I wish they had reported immediately that mom left with the kids. But on the other hand, obviously these kids are comfortable with the grandparents. That's where they've been living. So I think it's in their best interest to go back with the grandparents at this time.
Okay, I tend to agree with you. So, okay, then I will approve the agreement. I'll name the department temporary managing conservator, name the parents temporary possessory conservators. I will order the children be placed back with the maternal grandparents. Can just Miss Olguin and I guess Miss Naranjo, you can advise her. Be sure not to allow anything other contact between the children and the parents other than what's authorized by the department and or St. Francis or by court order. I don't like to move kids, period, and I like to have kids with relatives, but if the order is violated, I'll have no choice but to remove the kids immediately, which hurts nobody but the kids. So, okay. I will order then the children be placed with Hector and Veronica Olguin as soon as that transition can be made. We will have the full adversary hearing on March 18th, 2024. Haley's gone, but she's showing me that that's set for 10:30 a.m. That could change, so just go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of March 18th to see exactly what time we'll have that hearing. Okay, I do make a finding that the department made reasonable efforts to avoid the removal of the children by offering the parents services through the FBSS program. And I guess that's all we had this afternoon, so we will stand in recess. Everybody have a good weekend. Appreciate y'all working that out. An adversary hearing. Mr. Gutierrez is with us. Ms. Gutierrez is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram is with us representing the children. Ms. Naranjo is with us representing the mother, Ms. Olguin. Ms. Naranjo, do you have your client with you?
Yes, Judge. She's sitting right next to me.
Okay, thank you. The father, Mr. Pantoja, Albert Pantoja, is not in the waiting room. He does not have an attorney. This case was set for 10:30. It's now 10:38. We will proceed in his absence. Okay, Mr. Brown has now joined us. So, Ms. Gutierrez, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The department calls Travis Brown as its witness. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Brown, Officer Brown, who do you work for?
The Amarillo Police Department.
And what is your role there?
I'm a patrolman.
Okay. And how long have you been a certified police officer for?
Just under 5 years.
And how long have you been with APD?
Since January of 2019.
Okay. Were you working on the early hours of January 14th of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you respond to a call regarding Diana Olguin and Albert Pantoja?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the nature of the call?
I was dispatched to a domestic disturbance.
And when you arrived, did you have an opportunity to speak with Diana Olguin?
Did.
And what did you observe about her?
Mrs. Holguin was crying and bleeding from her mouth.
And was a child present?
Yes, ma'am.
And where was the child located when you arrived?
The child was inside the living room of the house when I arrived.
Okay. And did Miss Holguin refuse medical attention?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What else did you observe about the environment outside?
There were looked like female clothing initially in the gutter in front of the residence, and then outside in the yard off the front porch of the residence.
Okay. And did Miss Holguin explain why she called for help?
Yes, ma'am.
What did she state?
She had stated she had been assaulted.
And what did she describe occurred?
So she stated that she had received a ride home from work from a male coworker. When she got home, her boyfriend Albert Pantoja became angry that she had received that ride home from a male coworker. She said she tried to exit the residence and was dragged back inside the residence by Mr. Pantoja. And then inside, she was put head and face.
And did she indicate she was pregnant at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she additionally indicate that Mr. Pantoja was aware that she was pregnant?
Yes, she had stated he had been to the doctor's appointments with her.
Okay. And did you, or rather, what injuries, if any, did you observe on her hands?
She had some bruising, I believe it was to her left hand.
Okay. And did you observe any blood on Ms. Holguin?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you observe?
She had blood on her face and then on the top of her hand.
Was there also blood inside the home?
Yes, ma'am. The living room, bathroom, sink, and in the master bedroom.
Now, Mr. Brown, Officer Brown, you have some pictures before you labeled petitioner's exhibits 1 through 8. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you let us know what petitioner's exhibit number 1 is a picture of?
The clothing that was in front of the house.
Okay. Is that the home that you responded to the call in?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that the home that Ms. Holguin and Judah were located in?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a true and accurate representation of what you saw that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, we offer petitioner's exhibit number 1 as evidence.
Objections?
No objection.
Petitioners 1 submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Brown, next is petitioner's exhibit number 2. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is that a picture of?
That was the clothing inside of the house, and you'll see that toilet paper wrapper on the floor that had blood on it. Also, Judah is in that picture.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, officer, do you have petitioner's exhibit number 7 in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is this a picture of?
That is a photograph of the injuries to Miss Holguin's mouth. Yes, ma'am.
And what is that a picture of?
That is a picture of Miss Holguin's hands.
Okay. And is that blood on her right hand?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes, ma'am.
The Department X offers petitioner's exhibit 8, Your Honor.
Objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Petitioners 8 submitted.
Now, Officer Brown, was Mr. Pantoja on the premises when you arrived?
No, ma'am, he was not.
However, to your knowledge, was he later charged?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see. And in working that case, did you find any prior domestic violence charges for him against Ms. Holguin?
I do not recall.
Okay. Your Honor, we next offer petitioners 9 and 10. I may need to break these up individually. Okay. Your Honor, I next offer petitioners 9. It is a complaint against Albert Pantoja filed in Randall County for assault with bodily injury, family violence against Ms. Holguin with a date of occurrence of August 7th of 2022. Your Honor, we next offer petitioners exhibit number 10, which is the bond with restrictions against contact with Ms. Holguin for Mr. Pantoja in that same cause number as 9. We next offer petitioners 11. And this is a certified copy of an indictment against Albert Pantoja for assault on a pregnant person.
Objections? I'm sorry, go ahead.
With date of occurrence of January 14th of 2023. Thank you, Your Honor. We next offer petitioners exhibit number 12, which is the bail bond with restrictions against Albert Pantoja having contact with Diana Holguin in that same cause number. I pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Naranjo.
Officer Brown, do you have any knowledge of whether or not the child was actually physically in the room during the domestic violence dispute?
To my best recollection, Ms. Holgan said that he was in the room during the assault.
I have no other questions, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, then, anyone else have follow-ups for, Officer Brown?
No, Your Honor, I ask that he be released.
All right. All right, Officer Brown, thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service. I'll release this so you can go about your rest of your day's business.
Thank you,
The
Your Honor.
department next calls Officer Hegan. Officer Hegan, who do you work for?
Amarillo Police Department.
And are you a certified police officer?
Yes,
How long have you been with APD?
for a little over 8 years.
And how long have you been a certified police officer?
For about 7.5 years.
What is your position with APD right now?
I'm a patrol officer.
Okay. And on July 16th of 2023, did you respond to a call regarding Diana Holguin?
Yes,
And when you arrived, what did you observe about Diana Holguin?
she answered the door with a child in her arms. I believe she had some blood on her lips, and she stated that she had been assaulted by her boyfriend,
Who did she identify as the perpetrator?
Albert Pantoja.
Okay. Now, in speaking with Ms. Holguin, what, if anything, did you notice about her demeanor?
I noticed that her speech was slurred and that her pupils appeared to be dilated.
And based on your training and experience, did that lead you to believe she was intoxicated?
Yes,
Were there any odors that you took note of in that conversation?
I noticed marijuana in the house.
Okay. Were there any odors from Ms. Holguin?
No,
Okay. Now, when you were inside the house, what additional concerning items did you identify?
I know there was a rolling tray with some green leafy crumbles on it, which I believe was on maybe the entertainment center by the TV. And I know there was a rolled up dollar bill on the coffee table. There was a grinder, I believe, on the kitchen counter, and a package of naloxone or Narcan in her bedroom.
Now, at any point, did Mr. Pantoja arrive on the scene, or was he on the scene?
No,
Okay. Did you travel to another location to attempt to locate Mr. Pantoja?
yes,
Pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo,
No questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, can, Officer Egan be excused?
Oh, Your Honor, I forgot to go through the photographs. I apologize.
Okay.
Officer Hegan, do you have petitioners exhibits 13 through 20 in front of you?
I do.
And are those all a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes,
Your Honor, I offer petitioners exhibits 13 through 20.
Objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, petitioners 13 through 20 are admitted.
And I pass the witness again.
Anyone else have questions for Officer Hegan? All
No
right,
further-
then. Okay. Officer Hegan, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your service. I'll release you so you can go about your day's business.
thank you, sir.
The department
Thank you.
calls Gail Glenn as its next witness. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Glenn, are you the custodian of records for Covenant Health in Lubbock, Texas?
Yes, I am.
And did you provide 58 pages of medical records on Galileo?
Yes, I did.
And is she also known as Galia?
Yes.
And were these records maintained in the regular course of business?
Yes, they were.
And is it in the regular course of business for a Covenant Health employee or representative with knowledge of the act, event, or condition, opinion, or diagnosis to make the record?
Yes.
And are the records made at or near the time of events or reasonably thereafter?
Yes, they are.
And were the records provided exact duplicates of the original?
Yes.
Your Honor, I offer petitioner's exhibit number 21 as evidence, the medical records for Galileo.
Objections?
Your Honor, I would object to hearsay within hearsay. I know it's been established to the custodian of records. However, there have been provided no exceptions for the statements that are from outside medical personnel.
Ms. Gutierrez, response?
If she could please identify what statements from outside medical personnel, that would help.
There are statements from CPS investigators as well as statements from Amarillo PD and Lubbock PD, I believe.
Your Honor, I believe that still falls within the business records exception.
I think you're probably right. Also, I think there's exceptions for from any law enforcement officers. There's things that have to be proven before hearsay applies. So I'm going to overrule that objection. And if there's no other objections, then petitioner's exhibit 21, consisting of 58 pages, will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
Right, Mr. Naranjo, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right. All right, then, Ms. Glenn, I will release you so you can go about your day's business. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The department next calls Dr. Paul Redmond as its witness. Okay. Dr. Redmond, what is your profession?
I'm board certified in pediatrics and pediatric emergency medicine, and I work as a attending physician at Covenant Children's Hospital in the emergency room.
Are you a medical doctor?
Yes,
Can you please describe your educational history?
sure. After high school, I did undergrad, got a bachelor's in science from LSU in Louisiana, and then did medical school at Ole Miss in Mississippi, a 3-year pediatric residency program there, a 3-year pediatric emergency
Okay,
medicine
Dr. Redmond,
fellowship.
I'm gonna pause you right there. You're cutting out, and I apologize, but if you could maybe lean forward a little bit, speak just a tad slower.
I took my earbuds off.
Okay.
Sorry, I did undergrad, got a
No.
bachelor.
We had you clear up to your 3-year pediatric residency, but we didn't hear where.
At Ole Miss.
Okay.
And then 3 years of pediatric emergency medicine fellowship at the same institution.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And what special requirements did you have to meet to become board certified in pediatrics and in pediatric emergency medicine?
For both, you have to have completed a residency in pediatrics and then pass the national board certification exam by the American Board of Pediatrics. And for pediatric emergency medicine, you have to do the same, complete the residency program in pediatrics as well as a fellowship program and pass the board exam for pediatric emergency medicine.
Okay. In addition to that, do you have any teaching that you do?
Yes, I'm an adjunct professor for Texas Tech Health Sciences, and I kind of teach on a as requested basis to the pediatric residents. And then we also have pediatric residents that rotate with me in the ER.
Okay. Now, you have seen and treated Gala, correct?
That is correct.
When did you first see her?
I believe it was February 23rd.
And did you do a physical exam on the child?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And was there anything notable or concerning for you during that exam?
Yes, ma'am. There are two things that we noticed. One of the first thing was some bruising to her ear. And then the second thing was what appeared to be a healing straight line scratch or abrasion to her scalp. Those were the only two notable things on her physical exam. Oh, no, sorry. There was also a diaper rash that she had that raised a few concerns.
Okay. In addition to that, were you given background information for the child as a part of her treatment and diagnosis?
I was, yes.
And was that information provided by the department or a foster parent?
The information came by way of the foster parents initially, and then we also contacted, I guess it's Northwest Regional, is that the hospital in Amarillo, I believe, where the patient had been seen, like 12 hours before. And we also contacted CPS, tried to get a hold of the caseworkers to get a little further history.
Okay. And as a part of her treatment, was information provided to you that there were drug issues in the home for the child?
Correct, yes.
And what steps did you take to make sure that she had not been exposed?
Initially, we weren't exactly sure what was necessary. The foster parents had showed up saying they were requesting just a wellness exam. But when we found out from CPS, I forget exactly who my nurse spoke to, CPS had mentioned the drug issue and had actually asked if we were planning on getting a drug screen. And as we were gathering all that information, we went ahead and decided, yeah, we need to check and make sure that this child hasn't been exposed. So we put a urine bag on the child to obtain urine and test for like 8 or 9 common illicit substances.
And what was the result of that test?
Hers came back positive for cocaine.
And once you found out the positive drug screen, what was your next step to make sure the child had not been, or the child was not currently exhibiting any symptoms of that?
Of cocaine intoxication, really, it was a little surprising because the child honestly looked well from a behavioral standpoint. I believe we had gotten vital signs when she first showed up, and overall she was interacting appropriately. And so I didn't have any concerns that she was acutely intoxicated. Generally, children that are acutely intoxicated are, very agitated, very difficult to control, and she was not exhibiting any of those behaviors. So we assumed that the intoxication was not within the last 12 to 24 hours.
Okay. Now, going back, you said that one of the first thing that stood out when you did the physical exam was ear bruising. Can you explain to me why that was concerning?
Sure. This child was 9 months old, maybe even 8 months old at that time. So this is a child who is not ambulatory. That means she isn't walking at this age, probably doing some very minimal crawling. If she's super advanced, she can maybe pull to stand, but that's pretty rare at this age. And so generally babies this age are not incurring bruising from really many mechanisms at all. At this, we're taught there's a validated protocol called the 10-4 Faces P protocol that the American College of Emergency Physicians advocates that emergency physicians use to evaluate for bruising that would indicate something that's non-accidental or abusive. And one of the when I say 10-4 Faces P, 10 is trunk, so the body. E is for ears, and N is for neck. And so if there's bruising in those 3 areas, it's a red flag to consider it as non-accidental. And so this child who was presenting with foster parents with a history, we learned a history of some domestic issues. Now with bruising on the ear, these were all red flags that made us concerned for possible abuse or non-accidental trauma.
And is that the main item that triggered the bone scan for you?
Yes. Yes. It was the bruising in addition to the fact that this child had recently been involved with CPS already. That these are things that say, okay, we definitely need to look a little deeper at this child.
Can you explain in layman's term what a bone scan is?
A bone scan is a study where you obtain multiple X-rays, basically of the whole body, primarily focusing on the extremities, several X-rays of the arms, the hands, the legs, the feet, and then a few X-rays of the ribs. Rib fractures are common with abuse, and then X-rays of the pelvis.
And what injuries, if any, were identified from that bone scan on Galilea?
We found an arm fracture, a right arm fracture involving both bones of the right forearm.
And was that arm splinted as a part of treatment?
It was, yes.
And following that, was she referred to her regular doctor to follow up for casting?
I believe we referred her to an orthopedist, a bone doctor with Covenant to follow up for that, and also advised that she follow up with her regular doctor.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Mr. Unho?
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Redmond, how common is it for infants to get diaper rashes?
Very common.
Now, from the diaper rash that you observed, was it relatively moderate? What was the stage of it?
Diaper rash probably was, I mean, on a scale of mild, moderate, severe, I'd probably say moderate. Yeah.
And how long would a diaper rash for that state have to go untreated for it to get to that stage?
Not very long at all. You could 2-3 days.
Could eczema also irritate a diaper rash?
Yes.
Now, regarding the infant's positive cocaine on her urinary, how recent would an infant's exposure to cocaine need to be for the child's UA to be positive for cocaine?
I really don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I could find out for you, but generally I'm not involved in figuring out time course for those things.
You testified earlier that because the infant wasn't showing any acute signs of addiction, that it was likely that the exposure wasn't within the past 12 to 24 hours. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be my assumption, just anecdotally based on my experience with acute cocaine intoxication.
And based on your experience for a child to be positive for UA, is the exposure usually relatively recent?
Should be, yeah.
Is it fair to say it wouldn't be like from 2 weeks or a week ago or something like that? It'd probably be within a few days.
I really don't know. That I do know for cannabis, that one can stay in your system for a long time because it's fat soluble. But again, I'm not sure on cocaine specifically.
Okay. Now, you testified earlier about how the stages of mobility for a child at Galilea's age, if she was able to pull herself up, in your experience, is that possible to cause the bruising that she had?
If she had a fall of some sort that was reported, you could have theoretically hurt your ear that way, yes.
Okay. You also stated as part of your duties with the hospital that Northwest was contacted, correct, over in Amarillo?
I believe so, yes.
And then as part of your treatment, getting the medical history, what information was given from Northwest?
Honestly, not much. If I'm trying to, I believe from what we gathered, they had gone there at 1 a.m. or something like that, or early morning, late night, and not much was done at Northwest, and so we were kind of unsure why they were in our ER at that point. But I guess my understanding was they were at Northwest with CPS, and then they were placed in foster care, and foster parents, per whatever their protocol is, brought them to us for a second evaluation.
And from what you're aware, Northwest didn't evaluate for any drug concerns or any concerns about any injuries or anything like that?
Correct. I'm not, we didn't get any paperwork or anything that I recall. I think the foster parents had some paperwork and it didn't indicate that anything was done.
Is that normal for an emergency department to not do any investigations when a child is brought from CPS?
Not what I would do.
Now, for the fracture that you reported happened to the infant's right forearm, are there any other ways that an infant's forearm can be fractured that way other than through physical abuse?
Perhaps a car wreck. Usually, I mean, I'm not an orthopedist, nor am I an abuse pediatrician. But in my experience and from what I've been trained on, there's very few things that will break both forearm bones symmetrically without a reasonable traumatic event explaining that.
Now, as far as the fracture is concerned, was it reported that there are no recent signs of healing on the fracture?
That is correct.
Now, based on your experience, since there are no recent signs of healing on the injury, is it fair to say that the injury occurred fairly recently?
According to the radiologist, that would be the implication of the radiologist saying that, yes. For them to specifically say there was no recent or no signs of healing, they are implying that it is a recent injury, yes.
Now, when a fracture has no signs of injury, what is the typical window of when the injury may have occurred? Do you know?
I'm sorry, are you asking when it has no signs of healing?
Yes, sir.
I really don't know. Usually, I think within a week or two, you see signs of healing on typical long bone fractures like that.
So is it fair to say that the injury probably occurred within less than a week?
I would say it's reasonable to say less than 2 weeks, and I'm basing that exclusively on what radiology is telling me.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingram,
No questions.
any follow-ups for Dr. Redmond?
No, Your Honor, we ask that he be released.
All right. All right. If there's no objections, Dr. Redmond, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about your day's business.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Our next witness will be Dr. Hansen, Your Honor. Dr. Hansen, what is your profession?
I am a child abuse pediatrician.
Okay, and can you tell us what special education and training that required?
Sure. So I graduated with a Doctor of Medicine degree in 2008 and then completed a 3-year general pediatrics residency training at the University of New Mexico in 2011 and became board certified in general pediatrics. I then completed a 3-year child abuse pediatrics fellowship training in 2016 and became board certified in child abuse pediatrics. And those certifications are through the American Board of Pediatrics.
Okay, and have you completed a Forensic Assessment Center network consultation on Galileo?
I have.
And was this consult based on medical records from Covenant Health?
Yes, as well as some pictures that were provided by DFPS in that consult.
Okay. Now, is Forensic Assessment Center Network, how is that accepted in the medical community?
So this is a process where we review cases of children where there is some concern for possible child maltreatment. And we review information that's provided to us that may include medical records, photographs. Sometimes it includes some additional information from a DFPS investigation. And we offer opinions about the injuries that they have based on the information that they provided to us. Or about the concerns in their case. And so this is something that is done routinely in pediatrics and specifically in child abuse pediatrics, where there are not very many child abuse pediatricians, and there are certainly not enough of us to be available in every state, in every community. And so this is a way to provide medical expertise to communities and other professionals who would not otherwise have access to it.
And in addition to completing this FACN consult, have you physically seen Galilea in person?
I have.
And that was after the consult, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's talk about that consult. What information did you review in making your determination?
I reviewed a brief summary provided by DFPS about the concerns for Galilea, and then I reviewed the medical records from Covenant Children's here in Lubbock. That included x-rays and photographs, as well as some lab results, and some additional photos, I believe, provided by DFPS.
Okay, and in reviewing that, what stood out to you the most?
So she was 8 months old when she was evaluated at the hospital, and she was found to have several injuries that were not explained, and also some that are considered to be very specific for child physical abuse. She also had a positive urine drug screen for cocaine.
And at the time, results were pending on a screen or a test for herpes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And subsequent to this FACN consult, the result of that came back as negative. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What was the conclusion that you drew based on your review of the records, the x-rays, and the information?
I said that her injuries were consistent with child physical abuse based on bruising to her head, specifically her ear, and fractures to her arm, and to physical neglect based on her positive drug screen.
And when you saw her in person, was her arm in a cast?
It was, yes.
How did she look otherwise?
Otherwise, she looked well. She was happy and interactive. She had a small bruise on her forehead from that she had bonked her head while playing with her brother a couple of days before, but otherwise looked completely healthy and without injuries.
Now, can you go into more detail about this break or fracture on her arm?
Sure. So it's her right forearm, sort of above her wrist, and the fractures include both of the bones in her arm, and they are fractured across or considered transverse fractures. They were acute or new, meaning that we could not see any evidence of healing on the x-rays. And that tells us that they were less than 7 to 10 days old.
Okay. Can you go into detail of how, if it had been an acute injury, what type of behavior do you see with that arm on acute injuries?
Sure. So in an 8-month-old infant, we would expect them to show symptoms related to pain. So broken bones hurt. They hurt whether you're a baby or an adult. And the way that you display that the symptoms of pain may differ a little bit based on your age and your abilities. Certainly whatever the injury was that caused the break would have been painful. She would have expected to be screaming and crying with pain. A caregiver should recognize that something was wrong, even if they couldn't specifically identify that it was the arm that was bothering the child in that moment. In her case, the bones were not displaced from the fracture, so I would not expect her arm to be like obviously deformed. But she certainly would have had pain, and most 8-month-olds would display that by crying and screaming. Normal developmental activities for an 8-month-old might include things like crawling, rolling over, pushing themselves up to sit down, holding toys, holding a bottle. And I would expect limited movement and activity with that arm. And so if she was crawling at that time, I would expect her to not crawl on a broken arm. You know, if she normally fed herself or held a bottle with that hand, I would expect her to have decreased movement and activity with that broken arm.
Now, when did you see her in person?
On March 8th.
Okay. And on that day, how did she appear?
She was awake and alert and active and happy.
Okay. And were additional x-rays done following that visit?
They were.
And was there anything significant in those?
No, the x-rays identified the cast on her right arm that limits sort of the assessment of the bones, but there was evidence of fracture under there, and which we already knew about, and no new fractures anywhere else.
Okay. And again, your conclusion was that this was likely from physical abuse. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Roundhill.
So Dr. Hansen, you testified with your experience that the injury likely occurred less than 7 to 10 days ago.
That's correct.
Now, for those couple of days, would she have shown any signs of pain or anything like that?
I would expect so. And again, in an 8-month-old, I would expect that she would have decreased movement and activity with the right arm, the broken arm, compared to the left. I would expect her to have pain with activities like getting her dressed, like pulling her arm through sleeves or getting her arms through the buckles of a car seat where you have to kind of pull on the arms and hands to get them in there.
And with all those signs, when she was taken to an emergency department, would they have noticed and have tried to do something about it?
I expect they would have noticed that she was fussy and upset. Again, the bones were still lined up correctly, so there may not have been obvious, like from looking at her, that it was the arm that was making her upset specifically.
And with that in mind, since they wouldn't know, would they have done more of a full exam?
I would expect so, yes.
And this would include any emergency department, basically anywhere in your experience.
It should, if that is the thing that is brought, if a concern is voiced by caregivers, right? So Babies cry, they're fussy for lots of different reasons. And so if you bring a baby to the ER and tell me that she has been vomiting, but you don't tell me that she's been fussy with activities and she hasn't been using her arm correctly, then I'm going to focus on problems that cause vomiting and I may not put attention to other areas. So part of it depends on what caregivers tell the doctors in the emergency room.
Even if the caregiver is CPS and they're brought to the emergency room by CPS.
Sure.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram,
No questions.
any follow-ups?
Yes, Your Honor, I have a follow-up.
Okay.
Now, the answers you gave to Ms. Naranjo on if an emergency room would have recognized acute symptoms, that only would have been the case if the injury had happened within a short time frame prior to a visit to a hospital. Would you agree?
So yes, I think she still would have had limited movement and activity, right? But in the emergency room, if you're not putting her on the floor to crawl, we might not recognize that she's not crawling. If we're not handing her a bottle and asking her to feed herself, we might not recognize that she has that limited mobility of her arm. I expect that she probably would have limited mobility, but in that setting in the emergency room, when we're not giving her opportunity to display that and a caregiver is not reporting it, it could be missed.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Anyone else? All right, then can Dr. Hanson be excused?
We ask that she be excused, Your Honor.
All right, Dr. Hanson, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go about your afternoon's business.
Thank you.
Your
Thank
Honor,
you.
we next call Amanda Jones as our witness. Who do you work for?
Child Protective Services, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services.
And are you a family-based safety services worker?
Yes, I am.
And on February 22nd, 2024, did Keegan Ramirez ask you to interview a child on one of his cases?
Yes.
And was that child Albert Judah?
Yes.
And does the child tend to go by Judah?
Yes, he does.
Okay. And where was he interviewed at?
He was interviewed at school.
And during the interview, what outcries of abuse or neglect did Judah make?
Yeah, I'm object to hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer, ma'am.
Judah reported he had been staying with his father, and his mother and baby sister had also been staying with them. And he had heard and seen fighting.
I'm going to renew my objection. That's not an outcry of abuse or neglect.
Well, I don't think she's had time to get there, ma'am. So go ahead, Ms. Jones, you can finish your answer.
Judah reported that he had seen fighting and arguing between his mother and his father.
And did he report as well, even when he was in another room, he could hear noises and hear them fighting as well?
Yes, he said occasionally when they would fight, they would go to another room or he would be told to go to another room, but he could still hear them.
And what concerns did the child raise about his mom?
He stated his mom had been hurt by his father before, and he was scared of that continuing to happen.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo?
When he said about the fighting, did he say anything about either parent getting injured?
He said his mom had been injured by his father.
Did he specify when?
No, it just had happened before, he said, and he was afraid of it happening again.
So he didn't specify that it happened recently.
He didn't specify how recent.
I'll pass it.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
Ms. Gutierrez, anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. Amanda, following up on Ms. Naranjo's questions, did the child indicate who had slept in the home the night before?
Yes, he said dad slept there, mom slept there, he slept there, and baby sister had slept there.
Now, were you also helping with the removal of the children?
I did.
And what was your role in that?
After we were told that a removal would occur, I went back and picked up Judah with coworkers from Wolflin, and then I sat with them as well as other coworkers while we waited for placement, completed paperwork, watched over the children, and then met with Albert Pantoa and a friend of his in order to get Galilea.
Okay. And so you were one of the people that received Galilea from Albert Pantoja, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And how long of time did you spend with Galilea and Judah? Oh, you know what? Strike that. How long a time did you spend specifically with Galilea?
With Galilea, she came in later that evening with Albert. It was after 6 or 7 p.m. And so I was only with her a short time because other workers also took her to the hospital. And so my interactions with her were limited. I sat with Judah most of the day.
Okay. What was her demeanor, Galilea's demeanor, during the time you were with her?
She was fussy. When she was changed, she was especially fussy. We tried to soothe her by holding her. Other workers primarily held her, trying to soothe her. But she was fussy most of the time I saw her.
Okay. And did any accidents or falls occur while she was in your care?
No, I saw no accidents or falls.
And was it Elaine Lucero that took the baby to the hospital from you?
Yes.
Ask the witness.
Ms. Ronho?
Ms. Jones, in your experience, are there sometimes when children are transported to CPS that they may be injured?
Will you repeat your question?
In your experience, have there been times when children may be injured when they're being transported by CPS?
I've not had that experience. By CPS transporting them?
Yes, ma'am.
Not to my knowledge.
Have there been in your experience, have there been incidences where a child is injured while in the care of a foster placement?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to relevance. There's been no evidence that the child was injured while in the department or foster placement's care.
Overruled. You can answer, Ms. Jones.
I've not had any experiences regarding foster parents harming the children.
I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Stringer?
No questions.
Anything further? All
Nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
right. Can she be excused?
She can be.
All right, Ms. Jones, thank you for your testimony. I'll remove you so you can go about your afternoon's business.
Thank you.
The
Thank you.
department calls Elaine Lucero as its witness, and Your Honor, I think she's under one of the Megan Jepcott's names, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, she changed it to Elaine.
Here she is.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Elaine. Who do you work for?
For the Department of Family and Protective Services.
And are you a family-based safety services worker like Amanda?
Yes, ma'am.
And this case is actually assigned to Keegan, but he was out sick during this time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And so Amanda testified earlier that you transported baby Galilea to the hospital. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And why was she taken to the hospital?
At that time, it was myself and another one of my coworkers that took her. So I want to make sure that, that there was 2 of us that took her to the hospital. We saw her diaper rash and it was pretty severe. Knowing that we were going to put her in placement at that point, we wanted to make sure that, that she wasn't just being left there without being seen by a doctor and having diaper cream if they could prescribe her something more than just something over the counter. But she was very fussy. And so that's why we took her.
And with her being fussy, did you and your coworker hold her and feed her directly?
Yes.
And so was she ever put down to crawl or given a bottle to feed herself?
I don't remember her crawling. I remember her maybe sitting. I know when we would try to put her in the car seat, she would get like extremely agitated. Like I said, we initially thought we just thought it was the diaper rash because of how severe it was.
Were there any accidents or falls regarding Galilea while she was in your care?
No, ma'am.
And do you have petitioner's exhibits number 22 and 23 in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
And are these pictures of the diaper rash of Galilea?
Yes, ma'am.
And are they true and accurate depictions of what you saw that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Your Honor, we offer petitioner's exhibits 22 and 23 as evidence.
Objections? All right, petitioners 22 and 23 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Elaine, following that visit to the ER, or rather, let's back up to it. In the ER, did you specifically take her for the diaper rash?
Yes, ma'am.
And following that visit, was she then transported to Lubbock to the foster home?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, there were no falls or accidents with Galilea, correct?
No, ma'am.
No, there were not any falls.
No, ma'am. There were not any falls. She was in a car seat the entire way to Lubbock.
Do you recall approximately what time you got to Lubbock to the foster home with Galilea and Judah?
I believe we got back to Amarillo about 3. So I believe it was maybe about 1, a little after 1 that we arrived.
Okay. Now, is it typical for children that come into care to get an exam within 3 days of coming into care?
Yes, ma'am.
And did these
That's
children?
that's actually a mandatory.
Okay, so you took her to Northwest Hospital immediately for the diaper rash, but also knowing that there would be a 3-day exam later on, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lucero, when you went to the hospital, you went to Northwest, correct?
That's correct.
And did you report to Northwest that the child was very fussy and that she was extremely agitated when you placed her in her car seat?
Yes.
And they didn't seem to have any concerns about that?
They asked us to look at her diaper rash, and so we removed her diaper and they looked at it. We sat back in the waiting room and they brought us back in to a room and just gave us a prescription for diaper rash cream, and that was it.
They didn't seem to have any concerns about her being so fussy?
They thought that it was the diaper rash as well, I'm guessing. I don't know. They didn't say anything to us further.
Now, you also testified that it's typical to have an exam within 3 days once placed in a foster placement, correct?
That's correct.
Now, for these medical exams, are they typically with a primary care provider or a pediatrician?
That solely depends on the placement and what medical facility they use.
But is that normally the case?
For them to use a primary?
Yes.
So from my understanding, what had taken place is that they had taken this child to the primary that they used, and that primary was no longer working there, and they were directed to go to the ER. That's what I was informed of.
Do you know who directed them to go to the ER?
No, ma'am.
Now, in your experience, is there a possibility that the child could be injured on transport from CPS?
No, I mean, I've never had any experience like that myself. I've transported a lot of kids and have never had an instance where they've been injured while transporting.
And in your experience, is there also a possibility a child could be injured while in the care of foster placement?
I've never had an experience. I don't work the foster area as far as conservatorship to have an experience like that.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anything further of Ms. Lucero?
No, Your Honor, we ask that she be released.
All right, Ms. Lucero, I'll release this so you can go back to your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank
Your
you,
Honor,
sir.
we next call Terica McCoy as our witness. Ms. McCoy, are you the foster mother for Judah and Galilea right now?
Yes, ma'am.
When were they first placed in your home?
The 23rd.
And approximately what time on the 23rd?
It was 1 o'clock in the morning, a little bit after 1 o'clock.
Okay. And did you take the children to the hospital the next day for their well check exam?
Yes, ma'am.
And what time was that?
It was around 10:30, 11.
In the morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, while the children were in your care, did Galilea have any sort of fall or accidents?
No, ma'am.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo?
Ms. McCoy, while Galilea was in your care, did you observe any kind of fussiness from Galilea?
No, ma'am.
From when she was placed in your care, how did you observe her to be?
She was fine. I mean, she was pushing on her hand and everything. It didn't seem like nothing was wrong with her. She wasn't crying or anything.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram?
Ma'am, just for clarification, you said they were placed on the 23rd. That was the 23rd of February of 2024. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
Okay. Anything else?
No, Your Honor, we ask that Ms. McCoy be released.
All right. All right, Ms. McCoy, thank you for your testimony. I'll release you so you can go back to your afternoon's business.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I do have 2 witnesses left. My next witness is Keegan Ramirez, and I anticipate that his testimony will be rather lengthy. I don't think we'd be able to complete it. Let me see. Hold on. When's the next hearing? Not till 12:45. I apologize, Your Honor. I was thinking it was 12:15. The department next calls Keegan Ramirez. Thank you, Your Honor. Keegan, who do you work for?
The Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what do you do for them?
I'm a family-based specialist.
Can you explain what some of your duties are?
So the way I explain it is I work with families that have been referred from investigations that don't oppose any removals to where I can work with the family to prevent removals from happening.
Okay. And was there an investigation on the Holguin and Pantoja family?
Yes, ma'am.
And were Judah and Galilea the children in that case?
Yes, ma'am.
And were the main issues of the investigation drug use and domestic violence?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, we offer petitioners Exhibit 24 is the drug screen results of Diana Holguin during the investigation.
All right, objections? All right, petitioner 24 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Keegan, during the investigation, was a safety plan put into effect for Ms. Holguin where her contact with the children would be supervised?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that memorialized in a safety plan?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that signed by her?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it also signed by her parents?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, we next offer petitioners Exhibit 25, the safety plan.
Your
Objections?
Honor, I would object to that because it is Mr. Ramirez is not the proper custodian of records for this. He was not the one who facilitated the safety plan. The safety plan was facilitated by Ismar Pineda Triado.
Response, Mrs. Gutierrez?
Your Honor, it's signed by Diana Holguin. I believe that shows adoption of the entire document.
I think we can get that in if you want to call Ms. Holguin, but I'll sustain the objection at this time.
Sure. Now, Keegan, was an order to participate ordered by the court?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, we next offer petitioners Exhibit number 26. It is a certified copy of the temporary order for required participation and services.
Objections? All right,
No.
26 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Keegan, you became the caseworker for Ms. Holguin and Mr. Pantoja when they were ordered to do services. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the date of that hearing was October 30th of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What kind of contact did that order to participate? We're going to refer to Exhibit 26 as an order to participate. What kind of contact was ordered for Diana Holguin?
So, from my understanding in the order to participate, the safety plan that was done by the investigator for both parents was to be made a court order to where Diana resided with her parents, where they would supervise her contact with the children. And then on the dad's side of things, his contact was supervised by his brother and his friend whenever he would have contact with the children. It was also ordered for any of the services that were court ordered during that initial order to participate. That would be my duty to get them set up for the for the services required.
Okay. Now to clarify, there were also bond restrictions against Mr. Pantoja's contact with Ms. Holguin at the time as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And to your knowledge, are those still in place today?
Yes, ma'am.
Was Diana Holguin ordered to drug screen by hair follicle and urinalysis and alcohol screen by 4 p.m. on October 31st of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
And was Albert ordered to hair follicle and urinalysis drug screen by October 31st, 2023 at 4 p.m. as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did that order also include a provision that exchange of the children between the parents was to be supervised?
Yes, ma'am, to my knowledge.
All right. Now let's take a look at the services. Can you please very briefly state each service that Diana Olguin was ordered to complete?
That pulled up.
Your Honor, let me strike that question and ask a shorter question.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Keegan, in that order to participate, were there services ordered for Miss Olguin to address her issues with substance abuse?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there also a domestic violence support group ordered?
Yes, ma'am.
And in general, the court, that order was trying to address those main issues. Would you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What services, if any, did Diana Olguin complete between October 31st of 2023 and the removal of the children at the end of February?
None of the services.
Okay. Did she drug screen at least sometimes for the department?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did she drug screen? Did she complete the drug screens that were ordered on October 31st of 2023?
Yes, ma'am. To my knowledge.
Did she complete the hair follicle drug screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in her service plan and the services identified in that order to participate, did it inform Ms. Olguin that if she failed to drug screen, that it was a presumed positive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did Mr. Pantoja comply with the drug screening order of October 31st?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were his results?
His results were that October. So on the hair follicle, it was positive for different types of cocaine. Benzo, and I'll probably mispronounce it, but it looks like a benzolectagonine, cocaine metabolite, and neurocaine, and then as well as a marijuana metabolite.
Now, in regards to the court-ordered services for Mr. Pantoja, did some of those services attempt to address drug use and domestic violence as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And what services did he complete between this order to participate being ordered and the removal of the children at the end of February?
He completed his OSAR assessment and then was in the process of starting his Padre program.
And was a safety plan entered into by Mr. Pantoja as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he sign it?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit number 27, the safety plan for Mr. Pantoja.
Objections?
No objection.
All right, petitioners 27 is admitted.
Now, Mr. Pantoja completed a drug screen for the department on November 27th of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit number 28. It is the drug screen result of Albert Pantoja with a business records affidavit and a 902 notice that had gone out.
Objections?
No objection.
Petitioners 28 submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Keegan, what concerned you about those drug screen result of Albert's from November 27th?
It was positive for cocaine metabolite, benzolectagonine, and marijuana.
Now, following that drug screen, there was a review or compliance hearing for the case on December 11th of 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit number 29. It is a certified copy of the review court proceeding order.
Objections?
No objection.
All right, 29 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Keegan, do you recall that both Albert and Diana were ordered to drug screen by 4 p.m. on December 11th of 2023 in that order?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did Diana complete that drug screen as court ordered?
No, ma'am.
Did Albert complete that drug screen as court ordered?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And again, how does the department view drug screens that are ordered or requested and missed by a parent?
They're presumed positive.
And did the judge specifically in that compliance order that the parents' contact with children continue to be supervised?
Yes, ma'am.
Following that compliance in December, was Mr. Pantoja arrested again?
Yes, ma'am.
And were those related to domestic violence?
Yes, ma'am.
However, would you agree that Ms. Holguin was not the victim in those charges?
Correct.
Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit number 30. It is a certified copy of a criminal indictment with 2 charges against Albert Pantoja. Count 1 is assault of a family member impeding breath or circulation. Count 2 is abandon or endangerment of a child with knowing or reckless criminal negligence.
Objections?
No objection.
All right, petitioner's 30 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. We next offer petitioner's exhibit 31. It is a certified copy of a criminal complaint against Albert Isaiah Pantoja for a violation of a bond against the victim in the indictment. Again, not Ms. Holguin.
Objections?
Nope.
All right, petitioner's 31 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Keegan, would you agree Ms. Holguin, up until the month of February, was fairly consistent in her communication with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you communicate to her parents that they were to supervise her contact at all times?
Not me specifically. Just in regards to the grandfather in this case, out of all of my visits, he was there for maybe one. But the grandmother was there. But due to the language barrier, my contact was always with Diana.
Okay, but the court order was there for her contact to always be supervised, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when did you last physically see the children before the removal?
In the month of January.
And how did the children appear at that time?
They both appeared happy and healthy, and I didn't have any safety concerns.
Okay. And during the month of February, what changed in regards to communication from Diana?
In the first part of February, I'm just trying to remember, Diana's contact wasn't good until she told me that something had gone on with her phone where she couldn't make phone calls or text messages, and she got it fixed. And she updated me about it, and then we scheduled a visit, I believe on the 15th of February, where she had rescheduled, saying that Galilea had to go get shots and Judah was being picked up by Albert from school and asked to reschedule. I tried rescheduling everything and then didn't hear from her.
Okay. Now, in between the compliance hearing in December and the removal of the children, did you ask Ms. Holguin to drug screen?
Yes.
And did she comply with those requests?
So in the month of January, I brought a oral swab to her house, but due to the oral swab, when I opened it, the container tube was busted. So she couldn't drug test that day. So in January, it was basically a malfunctioning of the oral swab.
Okay, but she didn't drug screen as court ordered in December, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, what occurred on February 22nd? Actually, let's backtrack back to talking about February. Now, in February, at some point, did you panic due to the lack of communication from Diana?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you attempt to make a visit on February 21st?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened with that attempt?
On February 22nd, I have to remember, or not, sorry, you said 21st. Let me make sure that was the correct. So on the 21st, I went to the address due to us already having a scheduled visit. I knocked on the door, I rang the doorbell, but nobody answered. I called Diana and it rang until I got the voicemail, and then I just left a voicemail for Diana saying that I was at the house and just asked for a call back. I waited several minutes in my car, just hoping that she would call, but she didn't, and then I left the residence.
And then the following day, did you receive allegations that Diana had left the home with the children?
Yes, ma'am. After not visiting, I reached out to her father, Hector Holguin, and he had told me that she had gone.
Sustained.
That she had gone back to her
No,
old
no,
way.
Mr. Merrick.
Oh, sorry.
You can't testify to what the grandfather told you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So prior to February 22nd, had you received any information that Diana had left her home?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you asked Amanda Jones to interview Judah, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it learned through that interview that it was confirmed that mom and dad, that Diana Holguin and Albert Pantoja were staying together?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have a phone call with Diana Holguin that same day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did she state when you asked her about staying with Albert?
She denied it.
Okay. And did she change her answer at some point?
Yes, ma'am. In a phone call just a couple minutes after the first.
And what did she state?
She claimed that she had only been with Albert for 2 days, but didn't stay the night.
And at this point, what were the major concerns for the children, Galilea and Judah, by the department?
Due to the history of domestic violence, as well as the protective order that was already in place, that with both of them being together as the sole caregivers for the children, that the children could be put in danger.
Okay. And for clarification, Diana Holguin had her own set of supervising people. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a different set of people to supervise Albert Pantoja with the children. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And these sets of supervisors were not authorized to supervise the other parent. Is that correct?
Correct.
Would you also agree that a major concern was the violation of the bond restrictions by Albert?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you also agree that Diana's continuing to be physically with him was a major concern?
Yes, ma'am.
And did the department also have concerns that the supervising parties were not following the court orders to fully supervise the family?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the department feel at that time, under these circumstances, that the children were in immediate danger of their physical health or safety?
Yes, ma'am.
And following the removal of the children, were those concerns confirmed?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, due to Galilea's diaper rash, positive drug screen, and arm fracture, was there an additional investigation that was opened through the investigation department of CPS?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any knowledge of that investigation?
I have minimum knowledge as my communication with the investigator just to get updates.
Now, Ms. Holguin has asked more than once for the children to be placed at home with her parents. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And those were supposed to be the supervising party for Diana with the kids. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the department's position on that possible placement?
We are opposed to it just due to right now the current investigation, as a maternal grandmother is also a perpetrator in that investigation at this time.
Would you also agree that any delay in the parent and the grandparents contacting the department regarding Ms. Holguin leaving increased the risk to the children?
Yes, ma'am.
And to your knowledge, were any steps taken by the maternal grandparents to ensure the safety of the children once Diana left their home?
To my knowledge, it was just phone calls to Diana.
Pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Naranjo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ramirez, the children, from your understanding, were pretty much placed with Miss Holguin's parents sometime in September, correct, of last year?
Like placed officially?
Yes.
Yes, within the investigation.
And they pretty much remained there until sometime in February, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So the children were with no safety concerns with the grandparents for about 6 months, correct?
Yes, ma'am. On all of my visits, when I'd go visit over there to visit with Diana and the children, I had no safety concerns.
And you went to go see them several times in person, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And every time that you went in person, most of the times you did not meet with the grandfather, Hector Holguin, correct?
Correct, as he was working.
And he speaks English, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But Miss Holguin's mother, Veronica or Ninfa Holguin, does not speak any English, correct?
Just a little bit. Like if I would ask her how her day was going, she would say yes.
But for the most part, you could not really communicate effectively with her. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you testified that your primary contact was mainly with Diana, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that you had very limited contact with her father, Mr. Oging.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that in mind, how do you expect Mr. and Mrs. Oging to be able to communicate with you when you had limited contact with Mr. Oging and you had a language barrier with Miss Oging?
Are you talking about like in reference to why they didn't call?
To everything.
Basically, at that point in time, I had no concerns with Diana, as Diana's communication up until February was perfect, and just trying to get her to start services as to the reason why.
So there wasn't a problem with having ineffective communication with them until there came a concern from the department. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, just due to the fact that after speaking with just me personally speaking with the grandfather about how many concerns that they had after she had left.
But you expect them to be able to communicate with you when you had ineffective communication with them for months.
Basically, from my understanding is if they had concerns with her leaving with the children, that they could have communicated either by calling 911, or if they did have any CPS concerns, they could have called the office if they didn't have my phone number.
So they didn't have your phone number, correct?
Correct, to my knowledge, yes.
So again, how did you expect them to be able to communicate with you?
By calling the office to get in touch with me.
And you didn't think it would be much easier to, I don't know, give them your phone number?
So during all of my visits, Hector hadn't been there at the house. So that's why he probably didn't have my number, but with Nifa not speaking English, I didn't give her my phone number when I first got into the case, as there was phone numbers on the family plan and phone numbers to the investigator, as well as the supervisor, the investigator's supervisor as well, if they had any concerns.
But is it fair to say that Diana, everybody else would understand you as the main caseworker, as you're the one that came to visit every time, correct?
Yes.
Now, around the time when the whole incident happened on February 22nd, Diana was the one that told you that she'd been staying with Albert for 2 days and that Galileo was currently with Albert, correct?
Correct.
And when you spoke with Albert, did Albert also deny that Diana lived with him?
Yes.
And did he also say that Galileo was currently with his aunt? I can't remember her name at this moment, but I think it was Gloria Pantoja.
So with me, he wouldn't give me the name or the address to the so-called babysitter on the 22nd. I believe he gave that information to Amanda Jones or Elaine Lucero during when he had brought Galileo to the office.
Okay. And from your investigative report, when the department had checked out Galileo, you reported that Galileo appeared to be smiling and in good spirits, correct?
Was that on the 22nd?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So from the information I had gotten from the documentation, as on the 22nd and the 23rd, I was out sick and working from home trying to basically help with this situation.
And per what you understand, she was taken to Northwest Hospital, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was where they addressed the diaper rash only, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in your experience, have children sometimes been injured in the past on transport to a foster placement by CPS?
In my experience, no.
In your experience, have children also been injured while in a foster placement?
In my experience, no.
Now, typically, once a child is placed in foster placement, is it standard procedure to have that child go take a wellness exam?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it standard practice for the foster parents to normally take them to like a primary care physician or like a family clinic, something like that?
So it just kind of depends on the situation. If a particular doctor doesn't have any availabilities, then they have a 3-day time frame in order to get that child seen per like their policy and our policy.
But is it normal that they usually take to a primary care physician or to a family clinic?
That's what they try to. Yes, ma'am.
Is it unusual to take the child to an emergency department?
No, ma'am.
Now, the entire time during when the 6 months when Miss Olguin was under court orders to participate in services, she kind of failed to do so, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But the department never facilitated the removal of the children until February 22nd, correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And was that because the department felt that the children were safe in the care of the grandparents?
At that time, yes, all the supervising parties and Diana hadn't left the house until that point.
Now, during these 6 months up to the removal on February 22nd, was Mr. Pantoja also having visits with the children?
Yes, to my knowledge, in the beginning, it was just Judah.
Okay. And did the department have some type of plan as far as transportation was concerned for those visits?
From the information was that Albert would pick Judah up from school and then keep him from like Friday to the next Monday and drop him off. So it wasn't like we were doing the visitation at the office.
Did the department not think it would be a concern to have some type of scheduling plan regarding transportation, considering the bond conditions against Mr. Pantoja with Miss Olguin?
No, just due to Diana dropping off Judah at school and having no interactions with him, since Albert was the one picking him up from school on that Friday.
What about Galilea?
At that time, me and Diana had talked about it, and she was keeping Galilea just due to her age and how at that age, a lot of children need their mothers more than they would the father. So for my information, Galilea wasn't going over there.
And Mr. Pantoja was okay with that? He had agreed to that?
Yes, from the visits I had, he was just fine with having Judah for the time being until Galilea got old enough.
And so basically the department basically said, you know what, since it's being done at school, not a problem, not a concern, even with the domestic violence.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to argumentative.
Overruled.
So at that time,
Basically, did you hear me?
sorry, Kendra. Go ahead, Kendra.
No, I was just clarifying if you heard my question.
Oh, yes. So basically, with the school basically being the go-between to where the parents didn't have to interact with each other, it was the safest option to where there was a lot of people, there was the teachers and everything, to the point where there was no concern with transitioning children with the school year being intact.
You testified that that's the safest option. Wouldn't the safest option have been for the department to facilitate transportation for visits?
So we normally don't facilitate any like transportation of kids with visitation, as that is kind of a custody thing. So if we were to get out, then the parents would have had to come up with a plan anyway.
Now, you testified regarding the drug screens for Miss Olguin that she didn't really do any, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, she did drug screen back in September on the 18th for a UA and on October 31st for a UA. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in both of those, she was negative.
Did you say a UA in the hair follicle?
But both are UAs.
Oh, both are UAs. That was during the investigation.
And she was negative on both of those, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then she had provided her drug screen back in July, correct?
Yes, ma'am, to my knowledge.
So she did comply with some drug screens, just not all of them, correct?
Yes, just not in my part of the case.
Now, there's currently an ongoing home study involving Miss Tracy Curtis. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, to my knowledge.
Do you have any update regarding that home study?
No, ma'am, as that's on the St. Francis side of things.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
Keegan, I think you probably already answered this, but for my benefit, tell me again, what was the time frame between when the children were taken out of the grandparents' home and when you found out about it?
So the information I had got was on February 22nd, so the day of the removal, and the time frame was the 15th. On February 15th, Diana had been gone from the grandparents' home with both children for about a week.
Okay, thank you. Pass witness.
All right, anyone have further questions for Mr. Ramirez?
I do, Your Honor. Keegan,
Okay.
what visitation has Ms. Holguin had since the children were removed?
Let me look at my calendar real quick. So the first initial visit for Diana was on March 1st, and then I believe she had a visit last week on the 14th.
Okay. And what visits, and is Mr. Pantoja having visitation since the time of removal as well?
The same dates, March 1st and March 14th.
Ask the witness.
Mr. Arno, any follow-ups?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Inger?
No questions.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ramirez, thank you for your testimony. I do want to mention, Mr. Ramirez, if you would do us a favor, mainly for Amy. I noticed when you testify, when someone asks you a question, the first few words, when you start to respond, we can barely hear, and then all of a sudden your voice kicks in. Can you, it's nothing you're doing, I'm sure, but could you get with your IT people and see if they can't figure out what causes that? Because I'm sure it's driving Amy crazy.
Yes, I can.
Okay, I appreciate that. I meant to tell you that last time you testified and I forgot to. So, okay, can Mr. Ramirez be excused or do you want him to stay?
I would like for him to stay, please, Your Honor.
Okay, I want to take something up real quick. Ms. Wiggins, can you hear me?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, let me just inquire of the lawyers in this case. We've got a 12:45 hearing. How much longer do you think it's going to take for us to finish this adversary hearing? Ms. Gutierrez, how many more witnesses do you have?
I have one more witness after Keegan. And I anticipate, I think I could get through her, just depending on the questions from all parties, Your Honor. But I also don't know if Ms. Naranjo intends to call any witnesses.
Well, I'm getting there. Who's your witness?
Ashley Delgado.
Okay, all right. Ms. Naranjo, I assume you're calling your client.
No, I will not be, Your Honor. I don't have any witnesses.
Okay. Ms. Wiggins, we can do one of two things. I'll try to figure out about how long this would take. We can just postpone, we can reset your case, or we could move it back. Once we finish this, I've got yours. How long do you anticipate on your motion for aggravated circumstances?
So we have 12:45 to 3. So we have
Mhm.
quite a substantial time period. I have called Lynn Jennings, subpoenaed her, and she's very difficult to get. So I would ask that we delay, but not change the date. That makes
Okay,
sense.
great. So that's my question. And let's just try to decide how much longer we might, very liberally, we may have to take on this Pantoja adversary, and then we'll set yours, Ms. Wiggins. If we just keep going straight through, do you think we would be through by how long you think you'll take, Ms. Wiggins? I've got a 3 o'clock. If we set it, can you do it in 30 minutes, or do you need more time? About 2 o'clock.
If it starts at 1:30, I could probably make it.
By 3?
Yes.
Can we finish this one by 1:30? Either that, or I just want to reset yours and not inconvenience everybody. If we don't think, if we can't make it by 1:30, I'm just going to reset the Ms. Wiggins case to another day.
I really think I could get through this next witness in 20 minutes or less. And
Okay.
my part of the questioning will be half of that. That gives about 10 minutes for cross. And of course, if they want to go in deeper, we can look at pushing things back, Your Honor. But I think I can get through her very quick.
Well, Ms. Wiggins, and Haley, you can notify Mr. Hill. Let's move that one back to 1:30
Okay.
and see if that works. And if it just all falls apart, we'll just reset the motion for aggravated circumstances, and we won't bother taking up Dr. Jennings' time. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Haley, you can work on that, and
Okay.
we will just go ahead and proceed. Okay. Ms. Gutierrez, then you're ready for Ms. Delgado?
Yes, Your Honor. Ashley, who do you work for?
The Department of Family and Protective Services.
What do you do for them?
I'm an investigator.
And when did you receive that intake?
On February 24th, 2024.
What were the intake allegations?
There was concerns about Galilea testing positive for cocaine and having a broken arm.
Okay. And have you concluded your investigation yet?
No, I have not.
Who are identified as the possible perpetrators in the allegations?
The original intake doesn't have anybody listed, but based off of speaking with Keegan and looking at the documentation and the events that surrounded the removal, I have a couple people that are questionable, and also Judah's forensic interview as well. So I have a couple people I need to talk to.
Who are the possible perpetrators?
Mom, dad, maternal grandparents, Gloria, I don't know her last name, and a possible unknown male that was watching Galileo while dad had her.
And are you working with law enforcement on your investigation?
I am.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo,
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right. Do you need Ms. Delgado to stay?
I do not need Ms. Delgado to stay, Your Honor.
All right. All right. If there's no objections, then Ms. Delgado, I'll release this so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right. Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor. The department rests.
Thank you. All right. Do we need about a real quick break before we start with, well, no, you didn't have any, did you, Ms. Naranjo? No.
I had no witnesses, Your Honor. I just asked to make a brief closing if the court allows.
All right. Mr. Ingram, any witnesses?
No witnesses.
All right. All right. Ms. Naranjo, you can make your statement.
Your Honor, we are requesting that the children be placed with the maternal grandparents today. As far as why we are asking for that today, it had been established through testimony today that there was a clear lack of communication between the department and maternal grandparents. They didn't even have Mr. Ramirez's number, who was the main investigator, which they should have been communicating with. There was clearly a language barrier between Ms. Olguin, who was the one that was primarily around, and the main communication was with Diana, who, per testimony, had become difficult to communicate with after she had taken off. Now, I think it's been established that there is about a week period in which Miss Olguin was gone from her parents' residence, and through the expert testimony that's been established, it's more likely that the injury that occurred to this child occurred during that week absence from the maternal grandparents' house, as was established by, I believe, Dr. Hansen, that the injury likely was acute and had occurred less than 7 to 10 days ago, which would have been around the time of when Miss Olguin had left her parents' residence. And given that the injury had been pretty recent, given that there had been no recent healing. Given that in mind, it's very unlikely that the perpetrators would be maternal grandparents, and given that they had no means of which to contact the department other than very other steps, which no testimony established whether those were accurately explained to maternal grandparents, we are asking today to place the children with maternal grandparents.
All right, thank you. All right, then, Mr. Ingram, your recommendations.
The name of the department is temporary managing conservator, continue placement as is for the time being.
What is current placement? Just the type of facility and either county or town?
Foster home and what up?
Together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Give me just a minute here. All right. Based upon the evidence I've heard today, as well as the exhibits that have been admitted, I am going to name the department or continue the department as temporary managing conservator. I'm going to continue the current placements today so that the department, as Ms. Delgado testified to, can continue their investigation with law enforcement. I'm not saying I won't consider change of placement at the status hearing, but as of today, I'd like to see where that investigation goes, since I've heard that the maternal grandparents are also persons of interest. So, okay, we will have the status hearing on April 15th, 2024. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance. Excuse me, I'm not through, Ms. Gutierrez. You can put your hand down. Parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance to see exactly what time we'll have that hearing on April 15th. Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are requesting a finding of reasonable efforts on behalf of the department and in facilitating visitation between the parents and the children, as well as staying in communication with parents.
I'll make a finding on that you've requested. So,
thank you.
Okay. Okay, that will conclude this hearing, and we'll deal with our own mess on our next hearing. So,
Apologies, Judge, but I see that St. Francis is present. Can we get a clarification on the home study from Ms. Curtis while we're all here?
Sure.
It's my understanding that Tippy has reviewed the home study. Is this for paternal grandparents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Tippy's the supervisor on this case. I have not personally read or seen the home study, but she has. And I believe that she denied it, and it's sitting on our program director's desk. She was out last week.
Do we know when that will get submitted?
Our program director when we deny a home study, a program director has to read it and sign off on it. And today was her first day back. She was gone all of spring break. So my guess is she'll read it this week. I just can't answer when she'll read that.
Okay.
I can make the request though.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Y'all have a good week. We'll stand in recess on Pantoja, and I'll get everybody. We're here on a status hearing. Ms. Gutierrez is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram is with us representing the children. Ms. Naranjo is with us representing the mother, Ms. Holguin. I don't know if she's with us or not. And Ms. Molinax is with us representing the father, Mr. Pantoja, who is with us. Is Ms. Holguin with us anywhere?
Your Honor, she's
with you. Okay, gotcha.
Thank you, Your Honor. Deja, who do you work for?
St. Francis Ministries.
And what do you do for them?
I'm a parent support worker.
And can you tell us what a parent support worker does?
I get assigned to the case as soon as when we get it. I see the parents weekly. When seeing them weekly, I'm really the support to the parent with setting their services up with payments and just helping them in any kind of way with resources and anything like that they may need throughout the case for the first 90 days.
Okay, so the first 90 days, it's your job, correct me if I'm wrong, to connect the parents with services. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Have you spoken or communicated with Diana Holguin?
Yes, I have.
And was that by text or phone?
I did see her face to face last week, and by phone and text.
Okay. And so did you share that information with her that you would be the one connecting her with services for the first 90 days?
Yes.
And did she ask to be connected with any services?
Not anymore, just the ones that are on her family plan.
Okay. And have you made attempts to connect her with those services?
Yes.
How have those attempts panned out?
I've already put in the 2054s is what we call them for the payments for all of her services, and they've been in and submitted and completed, approved, and whatnot.
Okay. And how has your communication with Ms. Holguin gone?
We've spoke and saw each other last week, face to face, and so it's been better now, if I should say.
Can you please explain what you mean by that? Were you having trouble communicating with her before?
A little bit in March. I know I've been trying to send her texts to set up a face-to-face after I completed assessments with her. But I know she's busy and I'm busy, and we just have to find that time.
Okay, but when she attempted to communicate with you, did you reach out back to her?
Yes.
Okay. And was she timely in responding back with you?
Not necessarily. It would be a no response or a cancel when trying to set up.
But as of last week, it sounds like that's changed.
Yes, we did meet each other last week.
Are you hopeful that Ms. Holguin will go forward with all of her services?
Yes.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Naranjo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Moore, have you instructed Ms. Holguin to wait for OSAR to call her today or tomorrow to facilitate that service?
Yes, that's how they usually. I did instruct her that she can call as well. But they usually find that time and they'll call them, usually how it goes. OSAR, whoever does that, Linda or whoever, they usually call the parent.
And if OSAR does not call on today or tomorrow, what would be Ms. Holguin's next step?
Well, I will be assisting her in calling and emailing and making those attempts to help her get that service set up.
And did you also instruct her to wait for the Padre program to call her either today or tomorrow?
Yes, they are about the same. They usually call and reach out to the parent.
And is it the same steps that if they don't call her, you'll assist her in trying to get a hold of them?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
Well, thank you, Ms. Monax.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, are you just tasked with Ms. Holguin or with both parents?
With both parents.
And have you been in contact with the father to help set his services up as well?
Yes, we are actually meeting today.
Okay, and so has he been cooperative as far as this point?
Yes, we've met last week as well, or the week before last, and completed assessments.
Pass witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anyone have further questions for Ms. Moore?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The department calls George Webster. He may be calling in.
Okay, I don't have anybody in the waiting room yet. We can give him a minute to see if he connects.
Mr. Webster, who do you work for?
I work for FMC, doing business as BSA Care Express.
Okay, and in that role, are you a custodian of records for Care Express?
Yes.
And have you provided 6 pages of records from Care Express on Diana Holguin?
Yes.
As well, have you provided 6 pages of records on Albert Isaiah Pantoja from Care Express?
Yes.
And on these, are these records provided on both of those people? Are they kept at Care Express in the regular course of business?
Yes.
And was it in the regular course of business of Care Express for an employee or representative with knowledge of the act, event, condition, opinion, or diagnosis to make those records?
Yes.
And were the records made at or near the time of events?
Yes.
And are the records additionally exact duplicates of the originals?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, we next offer petitioners Exhibit 1, Care Express records on Albert Pantoja.
All right, objections?
No objection.
All right, petitioners 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. We next offer petitioners Exhibit 2, Care Express records on Diana Holguin.
Objections?
No objection.
All right, petitioners 2 is admitted.
And I pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Anjo, questions?
Mr. Webster, does it reflect on this screen that Miss Holguin did test for the urinary analysis?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Mullinex?
I have no questions.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anyone have further questions for Mr. Webster?
No, Your Honor. We ask that he be released.
All right, if there's no objections, then Mr. Webster, I'll go ahead and remove you so you can go about your afternoon's business. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank
Any
you.
other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The department calls Tippy Watson. Thank you. And are you the supervisor on this case?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
And specifically, do you supervise the work of Mickey Lane?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Have you received calls from Diana Holguin over the past couple of weeks?
Yes, I have.
Can you please explain what those calls were about?
She was very agitated and upset because we were having difficulties with her visitation schedule. Also, she was very unhappy and requested a new caseworker as she didn't feel that Mickey Lane had been responding to her text and emails and phone calls.
Okay. And as the supervisor, did you go on to review Mickey Lane's phone to ensure that she was responding timely?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And
she was.
Can you tell us what you found?
Yes, I found Miss Holguin had called and only left one message. She responded to the message on Tuesday of the following week. She had left the message late Friday. There were some text messages from Miss Holguin over the weekend, and of course, we don't work on the weekend, so those were responded to next business day within 24 hours.
And did you determine whether or not Mickey Lane was responding to Miss Holguin's contact timely?
Yes, she was.
Okay. And additionally, what is St. Francis's policy for missed calls that don't leave a voicemail?
We typically are not required to return those. We get a lot of calls that don't leave messages from various servers and things like that. So we return calls that have messages.
Okay. Additionally, was there some sort of issue with visitation?
Yes, there was. There was some mix-up over what was put in the adversary hearing orders.
Okay. Versus what was put in the family plans?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell the court what that mix-up was?
In the adversary hearing, the schedule was set up for 1 hour a week, and Miss Lane had put 2 hours per week. And so we had to straighten out what was actually court ordered.
And how is St. Francis handling that discrepancy between what was in the adversary hearing versus what was in the service plan?
We are going ahead and doing the 2 hours. It doesn't seem to be detrimental to the children to have 2 hours worth of visits, so we're going ahead and honoring that.
Okay. And additionally, have there been any decisions on home studies recently?
Yes, ma'am. I reviewed and denied one home study.
And who was that home study on?
That was on Tracy Curtis and Christopher Fluham.
Are you able to summarize for the court the reasons for the denial?
Yes, ma'am. Citizenship could not be verified for Ms. Curtis or Mr. Fluman. Mr. Fluman would not allow his children to be interviewed by the third party. He did not provide proof of income that he could support the children in his home. Mr. Fluman's self-reported history of alcohol abuse is not consistent with what he portrayed. He did acknowledge that he continues to consume alcohol after going to rehab in 2018 for alcohol abuse. So there is concern there. Ms. Curtis reported that she has never been arrested. However, her criminal background check showed that she had been. And so that was, at odds there. And the reason for her arrest was a DWI, and there's still alcohol in the home.
Okay. Now, do you know if the department has initiated any new home studies on the family or no?
Yes, ma'am. Both parents have given multiple people to be done. And so Miss Lane asked Miss Holguin which one she wanted first that she thought would be approved. And so she submitted that on Friday per my direction to get back with the parents and find out who they wanted the home study done on first.
So the home study that was submitted on Friday, do you recall who that was on?
No, I don't off the top of my head because I haven't seen it yet.
That's okay. I can ask the witness.
Ms. Naranjo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Watson, the department submitted to the court and e-filed with the court a visitation plan and family plan, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was submitted on April 9th of 2024, correct?
I believe so. Yes, ma'am.
And it is normal procedure for the department to do a family plan and a visitation plan, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's also normal procedure for both the caseworker and the supervisor of said caseworker, which would be you, to review and sign both the family plan and visitation plan, correct?
Yes.
And both you and Miss Lane signed that family plan and that visitation plan, correct?
Yes.
And then in that family plan and that visitation plan, the visitation hours for Miss Holguin with the children is 2 hours, correct?
That is correct.
And you are honoring those 2 hours, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And we will make up any missed time.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Mullinex?
Ms. Watson, with regard to the home studies, is it correct that only one home study can be done at a time?
That's correct.
And so that's why you asked who needs to be next. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so when the home study's done, if it's denied, then you guys move on to the next person on the list. Is that right?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anyone have further questions for Ms. Watson?
No, Your Honor. I don't have any further questions for her. I next call Mickey Lane.
Okay.
Your Honor. Mickey, who do you work for?
St. Francis Ministries.
And what do you do for them?
I am a permanency specialist.
Okay. And Ms. Watts, Etta Yates Watts, testified that you submitted a home study on Friday. Can you tell us who that was on?
Correct. Actually, I submitted it on Monday. The payment probably went through on Friday, but it was for Diana Holguin's brother, Arturo Holguin.
Okay. Thank you. And have you created service plans for this family?
Yes, I have.
And do those service plans represent the department's reasonable efforts to reunify?
Yes.
And are they reasonably tailored to the issues in the case?
Yes, ma'am.
And are the issues in the case the main ones, possible physical abuse, domestic violence, and substance abuse?
Yes, ma'am.
And do these service plans aim to mitigate the reasons for removal?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please identify 2 to 3 services uniquely tailored for Diana?
We have her doing a psychological, counseling, Padre and Ozar.
And can you please mention 2 or 3 services uniquely tailored for Mr. Pantoja?
He has BIP, counseling, and Ozar, and Padre.
And has Diana reviewed and signed the plan?
Yes, she has.
And has Albert reviewed and signed the plan?
Yes, he has.
Okay. And you heard Miss Etta Aidswatz's description of the visitation issue.
Yes.
In addition to that, is Diana having frequent calls with Judah?
Yes.
How frequently are those calls occurring?
They were occurring daily. We have all come to an agreement that they happen 3 times a week now.
Okay. And who is supervising those calls?
Placement is.
And to your knowledge, are those calls between Diana and Judah going well?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as drug screens, is Diana Holguin complying with requests to drug screens?
She did comply with the UA, but not the hair.
Okay. Your Honor, I ask that the court take note of page 4 of Exhibit 2.
Give me just a second
Your
here.
Honor, that's the bait stamped page 4.
I'm not finding that, so you'll have to tell me what it is.
Okay. Your Honor, there is a section on bait stamp page 4 of Exhibit 2 under remarks. It's in the first, I think, top third of the page.
Okay, I don't have Exhibit 2, so you're going to have to enlighten me.
Okay. It indicates that Ms. Holguin refused to provide a hair follicle sample.
Okay, if no one disputes that, then it's so noted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mickey, did you also request that she hair follicle drug screen?
Yes.
And was this in March?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she comply?
She did not comply with the hair, but she did with the UA.
Okay. And does that cause you concern?
Yes.
And did you ask her about the hair follicle drug screen not being completed?
Yes.
And what did she indicate?
She did not know one was needed.
Okay. And has Mr. Pantoja complied with drug screening?
He did the UA, he didn't do the hair.
Okay. And did he also, or rather, what explanation did Mr. Pantoja give to you when you asked him about the hair follicle?
He stated he did not know one was needed and thought you only hair strand at the beginning and end of the case.
And did you also hear from Care Express that he refused to provide a hair follicle sample?
Yes, on 3 occasions.
And did that cause you concern?
Yes.
Sorry?
I objected to hearsay before she answered the first question.
Okay, sustained.
Okay, Your Honor, I asked the court to take note of Exhibit 1, bait stamp page 6.
All right, and I assume that's the same thing as about Mr. Pantoja refusing the hair strand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so noted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mickey, are we asking the court to order hair follicle drug screens on both parents today?
Yes.
Are we asking for any urinalysis drug screens in addition to the hair follicles?
Yes.
Thank you. And has Mr. Pantoja been visiting the children?
So the visitations have been messed up. So he has not visited in 2 weeks.
And will he be receiving makeup visits?
Yes, he was scheduled for a makeup visit this Saturday.
And how many hours is his visitation program?
His is 2 hours as well.
Okay. Do you believe it is contrary to the children and against their best interest to be returned to the parents today?
Yes.
Do you also believe it would represent a danger to their physical health and safety?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Mr. Naranjo?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lane, you testified earlier that you believe that the payment for Mr. Holguin's home study was processed on Friday. Are there any more updates regarding Mr. Holguin's home study?
No, I haven't I haven't had a chance to look yet. But I did submit it on Monday for payment into the facility.
Now, you're aware that there's an ongoing investigation regarding the injuries and alleged and the cocaine to the child.
Correct.
And do you have any updates regarding that investigation?
I do not. I'm trying to provide a list of the names of family members to make sure that they are ruled out so I can enter the home studies as they come in, though.
And at this time, do you have any information regarding any family members being ruled out of that investigation?
There was a grandmother. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember her name. Or a great aunt. There's a great aunt that was ruled out, but she is unable to take the kiddos at this point.
And do you know if there's been any ruling out of Miss Olguin's parents at this time?
I have no idea. I'm not privy to the investigation.
Okay. Now, were you made aware through our office that Texas K&L Center does not offer a parenting class anymore?
Yes, and I had to update it. Yes.
And what is the alternate for the parenting class?
You will be attending Padre.
Okay. And I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Molinax.
Ms. Lane, with regard to the hair follicle drug screens, is it important for the parents to take those when court ordered?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that because even if they would be positive now, that in the future it could show a difference in the levels or something like that for the court's use?
Yes, it shows a baseline so that way we can move forward on if, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And so at this time, for either parent, is the purpose of a hair follicle to try to terminate them immediately or something like that?
No, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, anyone have further questions for Ms. Lane?
I do, Your Honor. I have a couple of follow-up questions on the service plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mickey, when you were being cross-examined, you said that Padre has replaced the parenting class. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is Padre what is on the service plan right now?
I'd have to go back and review. I'm so sorry.
Can you please check? Because if it's not, we'll need to ask the court to order that instead of a parenting class.
Yes, ma'am. It is not, so I will update both of the family plans today and change it to Padre.
Are we asking the court to, instead of order parenting in the service plans, to replace that with Padre for both Diana and Albert?
Yes.
And are you wanting the parents to do the full Padre program?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Does anyone else have further questions for Ms. Lane? All right, then, Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor. The department rests.
Thank you. Ms. Naranjo, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor. I'll rest.
Ms. Molinax?
No, Your Honor, rest.
Mr. Ingram? I think he said no witnesses. All right. Ms. Lane, you may or may not have the answer to this. In the report I read, it stated that Mr. Pantoja had an active warrant for violation of a protective order involving some other woman. Do you know, does he still have that warrant?
No, he does not.
Okay.
Not last time.
So he is able to attend his visitation now.
Yes, and he has a bail bondsman.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right, then. No other witnesses. Mr. Ingram, recommendations?
Continue department as temporary managing conservator. Continue placement as is. Children are doing well in placement.
All right. Thank you. Okay, then, based on the evidence I've heard, as well as the exhibits, I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator, continue the children's current placements. I'll order the services for each parent as contained in their service plans. I will, however, order that the service plan be amended to order that each parent successfully complete the Padre program as opposed to parenting, which was in the original service plan. I'll order both parents to hair strand and UA drug screen by 4 p.m. today. And I will order that each parent's visitation is suspended until they complete a hair strand and UA drug screen. All right. Our next hearing will be the initial permanency hearing. That will be on August 12th, 2024. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of August 12th to see exactly what time we'll have that hearing. All right. We will stand in recess on this
We asked
case.
for a finding that the department and St. Francis have made reasonable efforts to reunify. in facilitating visitation, creating the service plan, attempting to connect the parents with services, and in placing the siblings together.
Okay, then I will make those findings. You can add those to the order.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we'll see some of you back here in a few minutes. Y'all have a good week.
Thank you, Your Honor.